Now, let's go back to Europe. Well, I think that everybody in Europe pinned a big hopes on presidency of President Obama. Nobody, or very few, realized that President Obama and new multilateral tendencies in American policy may really raise certain problems for Europe. Will Europe really raise to this occasion, and will Europe be really ready to deliver? Is Europe going to be only doing the dishes after Americans cook? Or is Europe really ready to fill in the gap and to come up with capacities which are so important for nation buildings, which again is critical for the resolving crises in many countries, in Afghanistan in particular. So having that issues in mind, I hope that Mr. KarelKovanda will address at least some of them. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Janusz, and thank you for the Center for International Relations, and to Eugenius for having invited me. It's wonderful to talk here as a Eurocrat from Brussels, rather than as a former ambassador to NATO. I do it so seldom do I get invited to a NATO thing that I even forgot my very beautiful NATO necktie at home. I want to say that the remarks that I will make are strictly personal. If they coincide with official positions of the European Union, it will really be a coincidence. Let me make four separate things, I think. I want to talk about what we are doing, what's changing. I want to talk about our cooperation with NATO, and finally about the results of Lisbon. NATO has its security strategic concept. Europe has its security strategy dating back to 2003 and revised it in 2008. It isn't altogether a strategy, but nevertheless we call it that, we refer to it from time to time. Effective multilateralism is probably the best known highlight from that strategy that we use. And when Andrew Michta this morning asked that Europe play its role in security, I want to say that in fact we probably do. Particularly if one adopts the concept of comprehensive approach to security. We do, of course, our ESDP missions abroad. There have been about 20 plus now, of which a small handful have been military. But we also, in the comprehensive approach to security, we include diplomacy, political dialogue, humanitarian assistance, enlargement policy, development policy, in particular. I mean, nobody says that poverty is the source of terrorism, but poverty is definitely a source of other threats to security, such as fragility of states. I'll get back to that a little bit. And let me just underscore one thing. The European Commission plus the European member states contribute 60% of development assistance to poor countries. Whether we do it in the best possible way, I leave aside. I'm reading right now Dambisa Moyo's celebrated book from last year called Dead Aid, but you know, we do try. And also I want to emphasize the one point that the nexus between security, development and democracy is a triangle, a nexus which I think which we have come to well understand in the European Commission. Robin Niblett talks about or invites us to do capacity building. We do an awful lot of that, and we understand and agree that this is one critical input into strengthening security. What are we doing with ESDP? There is criticism that we do ESDP missions all over the globe with no overall strategic views, that they are bit-sized, and I'm sure that some of these criticisms are addressed correctly. But let's face it, failed, fragile, vulnerable states are a strategic risk. I don't know whether your security strategy calls them a risk or a threat, but they are a strategic danger to all of us, and if we are trying to fix those, then we are doing our share for improving our security. Our civilian missions include police, include customs missions like UBAM on the Moldova-Ukraine border, like Rafah, now winding, or which has been winding down, or has been wound down on the Gaza-Egyptian border, and so forth. I want to highlight one such mission, which is one of my favorites, dating back to 2005, which was Aceh. I mean, before we went into Aceh, nobody in Europe knew what Aceh was. People thought that it was a Polish type of vodka, actually. But and it's so far from Europe that why should anybody care? But we went into Aceh, as you know. We financed, helped sort out the civil war, looked over the aftermath being implemented and so forth, quite successfully, if I say so myself. And from my point of view, helping sort out the longest lasting civil war in the world's largest Muslim country is a strategic achievement. The fact that we haven't managed to sell it, the fact that we haven't managed to broadcast throughout the Muslim world what we have been doing in Aceh, what we have been doing in Kosovo, what we have been doing in Bosnia-Herzegovina to protect Muslims in those countries, that's a failure of our public diplomacy, which I leave aside as a separate issue. We do have difficulty staffing our missions, no doubt about that. Especially we have had difficulty staffing UPOL in Afghanistan, or police force there. There are reasons for that. Okay, one of the reasons is that military have people in the barracks whom they should be able to send out on a moment's notice. There are no policemen, or very rarely are there policemen in reserves somewhere who would be ready to be sent out. There are other reasons, such as pay and so forth. We're sorting these things out gradually, but we're not doing it as fast and as well as we should. On the other hand, when the Georgia conflict erupted, the decision to send a police mission to Georgia was a very rapid one, and it was implemented extremely rapidly, and it was overfulfilled as far as member states' contributions was concerned. I want to say that this is stuff done by, the ESDP stuff is done by the Council, by member states. But the Commission, which I sit in today, I'm not going to say that I represent it because these are my personal remarks, the Commission is closely associated with any ESDP and CFSP work that is done by member states. Closely associated is a term of art. This is a language from the treaties. And so there's nothing that happens without the Commission being involved. And in fact, I must say that the cooperation in the last 5 years has been very, very, very good between the two sides of Rue de la Loi. And if things don't work, it is only very seldom because of non-cooperation between the GSC, the General Secretariat of the Council, and the Commission.